I've long been fascinated by the geared locomotives as used in the early American logging industry. The Shay was the most widely used geared locomotive. It was invented by a logger named Aster Shay, who wanted to make logging operations easier and more efficient compared to the earlier use of horses pulling skids on rough timber roads. In 1884, Aster Shay consulted machinery builder Lima Machine Works, Ohio, USA, and Lima designed the 3-cylinder B-type and named it after Shay in his honour. Eventually Lima manufactured 2,770 Shay locomotives. Shays were manufactured in various weights from about 25 tonnes to 100 tonnes, and in one case I think a locomotive of 120 tonnes was produced as a one-off for, I think, the Hassinger Lumber Company. Geared locomotives were used to access the higher slopes on which the trees stood, for example in North and South Carolina and Tennessee. Typically, geared locomotives could manage gradients of between 3 and 6%. That said, there were occasional runaways, and sadly some train engineers, or as we would call them, train drivers, did lose their lives. It was not unknown for a locomotive to fall through, for example the wooden trestles that were used to cross gorges, etc. And sometimes, actually once or twice, the trestles themselves actually failed completely. Switchbacks on the rails were used to gain height more quickly. My model of a Shay was produced by Aster, when in my view they were at the top of their game. Sadly, I think they're out of business now. Aster first produced a model of a Class B Shay in 1978, but mine is the 2010 version. I bought the kit new in February of 2011. I began building the kit on the 19th of February and it was all completed by the 28th of February 2011, and the construction was absolutely seamless and faultless. Like the prototype, the model has 3 vertical cylinders and Stephenson valve gear. Again, like the prototype, the boiler is offset to one side to balance the weight of the 3 vertical cylinders on the other side, and the drive shafts, which themselves were quite heavy. The drive shafts run along one side of the locomotive underneath the cylinders, and at the time I was quite sceptical that such an arrangement would actually work, because you would normally expect drive shafts to run centrally along the centre of the locomotive. But I'm happy to report that clearly Aster Shay knew what he was about, because it works perfectly. The model is gas fired with a centre flue boiler and has a tender handle hand pump and an axle operated water pump, which is very efficient, I must say. According to Aster, it's fitted with a Roscoe type displacement lubricator, and I'll come back to that, and there are 2 safety valves and also a water bypass to the axle pump. My understanding of Roscoe displacement lubricators in the prototype is that they had a separate steam supply with a control valve which regulated the flow of steam to the lubricator and hence the amount of lubricant dispensed. There's no separate steam supply on the model, and I don't really think that the model has a true Roscoe lubricator. On the penultimate car of the rake, you may have noticed a flat car containing a logging skid winch. This represents a portable winching device, steam powered, that would have been set up in various temporary locations to haul the logs about in the forest. This illustration shows how such a device was or may have been used.